Hey, look at this super sick mix-up. That was really good. What? You're not impressed? You don't think that was anything special? Here, one more time. See if you see what's going on here. Did you see it that time? You at least see all the damage, right? This character dumps it out. Still don't think that's anything special? Okay. What if I told you this was a fuzzy? You know, that thing that was supposedly removed from the game and was widely regarded as an unfair, unreactable mix-up all throughout Season 1 and Season 2's life. Yeah, this is a fuzzy. Actually, yes, it is a fuzzy. It might not look like it at first, but that is actually what's happening here. If you were paying attention during the competitive time of Season 2, you might have heard the term Universal Fuzzy, and that is actually what's going on here. So you might be wondering two things. One, this just looks like a regular instant air dash mix-up, and I kind of see why you'd think that, but trust me when I say that this is actually much faster and much more difficult to react to than regular instant air dash mix-up. And the second thing you might be wondering, assuming you're trusting me here, weren't fuzzies removed from the game? I thought fuzzies were taken away at the beginning of Season 3. You know, when they removed snap loops. Well, yes. Fuzzies were removed from the game, but only Rising Fuzzies and Universal Fuzzies were only removed after snap loops. So if you're not following me here and you don't know what a fuzzy is, and if all this talk about fuzzies makes you think I'm referring to some kind of cuddly stuffed animal, don't worry, we will briefly be covering what a fuzzy is so that you can follow me along for this video, and hopefully I'll be brief enough that the people who do know what I'm talking about won't get bored in the meantime. So what we're going to talk about today is why some fuzzies still work, why Gogeta has very practical access to the Universal Fuzzy still, and how some other characters might be able to set up similar mix-ups. By the way, just so that no one gets the wrong idea or gets confused, I did not find this mix-up with Gogeta. Lazy Matman is the one who originally showed it to me, and I'm aware that Wawa has been using this for a long time whenever he'd be playing Gogeta and Base Goku together. He cycles through a bunch of different teams all the time, so I don't know what he's playing right now. So although this sort of thing has been happening in competitive matches with players like Wawa for quite a while now, I think a lot of the people who have seen him do it don't actually realize what's going on and don't really appreciate that there was a really cool mix-up happening right before their eyes. Okay, so before we can briefly go over what a fuzzy is, what a fuzzy mix-up is, we need to really quickly talk about how Blockstun works in fighting games. You probably already have an idea that if you make someone block, they can't move until they have recovered from that Blockstun. So until some period of time where they're locked out of acting is over, they can't do anything. But the important thing to keep in mind for what we're talking about today is the fact that when you are blocking, you actually can't even change between standing or crouching until that Blockstun is over. So I have a recording here where Base Goku just uses his assist, which is a pretty high Blockstun assist, so it's really easy for me to show you what I'm talking about here. If I were to stand block this assist, and then I were to try to crouch, I cannot switch to crouching until after I have completely finished recovering from this Blockstun. So you see Gogeta is going to be stuck standing here for quite a while. Even though I'm holding down back after blocking this assist, you can see it takes Gogeta a second to switch back to crouching. This doesn't mean that I can't actually block low. I can block a low if the opponent tries to attack me low, but my character is locked into that standing state. So I'm standing while blocking low. And this is what fuzzies take advantage of in most fighting games. So previously in Dragon Ball FighterZ, you would find some way of locking the opponent into a standing state like this. And while they're stuck in that standing Blockstun, you would go for an instant overhead, a rising, jumping light attack or something like that. And since airborne attacks are considered overheads, this would be a really fast instant overhead, because they're trying to block low, so they're guessing wrong if you go for an overhead, but they're locked into that standing state, so they actually do get hit by an overhead like this. This has been removed from Dragon Ball FighterZ, but it does exist in most fighting games in one capacity or another. This is really common to close out rounds in games like Street Fighter, or back when I played Persona 4 Arena, it was super common. It's in a ton of fighting games, trust me on that. This is just how fighting games work. And unless a game specifically is coded to prevent this from happening, you can't really get rid of it. So it's worth it to learn how it works. So how come Fuzzies don't work in Dragon Ball FighterZ anymore? And how come Gogeta supposedly still has one available? In Season 3, the game was patched so that rising attacks would not actually be able to instant overhead other players. So if I try to down back in this situation, even though I'm locked into this standing state, you'll see that the other Gogeta in this recording, the light just doesn't work. It doesn't make contact, it doesn't mix me up. If I hold back, it makes contact, but that's not a mix-up then, right? And if I down back, it just goes through me. So long story short, rising Fuzzies, the really, really fast ones, are gone now and they don't work anymore. However, there was another type of Fuzzy that was a Universal Fuzzy, where you take advantage of this standing state high block stun situation. And the idea is if you can force them into standing while they're blocking low, then an instant air dash mix-up is much faster than usual because you can now go for an instant air dash light and have it connect as fast as possible. Most instant air dash mix-up takes a little while to reach the opponent, even if your attack is pretty quick, because your attack might be above the other person, right? If my attack is up there, but they're down there, then I have to fall all the way to where they are before I can make contact with them and have it actually hit them crouching. Which means we are usually using mediums, which are slower, and even these sometimes don't hit on the first frame depending on the character that we're playing. But instant air dash lights are really, really fast. Trust me, this will hit you, especially online. In fact, this type of Fuzzy actually ended up being incredibly common towards the end of Season 2 at really high-level competitive play. And this was possible to set up consistently for a lot of characters that could go for snap loops. Now that snap has been changed and snap loops really aren't a thing anymore, this isn't very prevalent either. But like I mentioned, Gogeta can actually set this up very practically in a regular block string. So I basically already given you guys all the pieces to put this together for yourself. The goal is to force them into a standing position while having them locked down by an assist that keeps them in that standing position, and then while they're blocking low, you can go for your really fast instant air dash. So there's a few things to keep in mind. One, you need an assist that has a lot of block stun on a single hit. I can get this to work very easily with a character like Base Goku because he has a lot of block stun on a single hit. I can get this to work with Master Roshi's B assist because his B assist has such high block stun on the second hit. And although I'm not going to take the time to show you a bunch of different assists it works with a lot of C assists that are 2 hits and a lot of other single high block stun assists. Obviously Bardock B being a very easy example. So how come Gogeta can set this up when a lot of other characters can't? Well, the reason someone is going to be forced into standing is because when he does his Rekkas here, this sequence of 3 special attacks, right? The third hit is an overhead. If we set the opponent to only block low, then they will get hit by this overhead. And if we go for the EX one, this ends up giving us a pretty easy combo. And if we had assists available, we might be able to extend this even more, get a better sliding knockdown, you know, whatever. And if we use the medium ender, you know, this can very easily convert for pretty good damage, full combo, you name it. Anyone who fights Gogeta a lot knows that when you see these 2 Rekkas, the third one is going to be an overhead. So you're kind of forced into a standing position at that point if you don't want to just get hit for free. So the idea is we do the first 2, and at the same time, we have an assist come out when the third hit would have made contact. So at this point, you see that Gogeta goes for the second Rekka. The third one is probably coming. We have to stand up or we're going to get hit. So we stand up, and now we're forced into this standing state for a long time because of a high block stun assist, like either Base Goku, Roshi, or any of them that we talked about up until now. And this is when Gogeta goes for this instant air dash mix-up that is really, really fast. I promise you, this is super duper quick. There are tons of clips of players like Tachikawa and To Kill Stage using characters like Teen Gohan, Adult Gohan, Bardock, and snap looping their opponents into this Universal Fuzzy over and over again in Season 2. It was really, really good, even at the highest level of play in the world. This is reactable if you give it your full focus. It's just incredibly hard. And another thing to keep in mind is that you can just do something else here. You can go for a Dragon Rush. A character like Gogeta could go for a command grab. And obviously, once in a while, you do want to go low because a low option is very rewarding And obviously, if someone gets used to this mix-up, they might intuitively start to stand up and just remain standing, expecting the instant air dash to come. So the first like 5 to 10 times you go to do this against someone, it's probably going to hit them every single time. But eventually, you need to start treating it like a 50-50 and also mix in some other options as well if you want it to be super, super effective. I know that this isn't as flashy visually as the Goku Black mix-up that we showed before, where he's EX teleporting and floating over the other player and going for like cross-up, reverse, same side, crazy stuff. I know that this doesn't look as flashy as that, but to me this is equally as exciting because it's taking advantage of system mechanics, taking advantage of how the game is programmed to work in a way that is really, really creative. So now that we've gotten to this point, I mentioned earlier that other characters can do this too. Who actually can do this? The answer is actually most characters. The limiting factor isn't the point character. The limiting factor is the assist. Because as we mentioned before, you need a really high Blockstun assist that's on a single hit if you want to be able to do this kind of a mix-up and have them locked into that standing position for long enough. So assuming we have one of these high Blockstun assists, like Bardock B or Base Goku A, something like that. In the past, it was really common to do this with Android 16's A assist back when it actually had ridiculous Blockstun. I remember Sonic Fox did this a ton, this exact thing I'm about to show you. Near the end of Season 1, they would do this all the time. All you do is you use your overhead and you use your high Blockstun assist to make it make contact right after the overhead makes contact. The idea is they have to stand up because of the overhead. The Blockstun from the assist keeps them standing, assuming they don't immediately switch to down back right before the assist makes contact, which is pretty hard to do. And then you're free to go for your instant air dash mix-up. So let's turn on the virtual controller so you can see what I'm doing. And like I said, you can do this with most characters as long as their light attack doesn't hit like way above them. As long as it hits like about chest height or lower, it'll work. Overhead, and you can see I'm trying to block low, and it actually hits me standing, which is much faster than if it had to wait until it would reach me if I was crouching. If you want to know if you are setting this up correctly and doing this correctly, all you got to do is go to your enemy settings, set them to guard first only. Then you're going to do your overhead and call your assist, and then go for your instant air dash light. And if all this ends up being a true block string and they either don't get hit or you don't end up missing, then you'll know you did it right. Because what we're going for is just to be a completely true block string. So if it's set to guard first only, you'll be sure that it's working right. Also, fun fact, most characters are taller when they're blocking in a standing position than when they're regular standing. So a lot of the time, this doesn't hit Frieza, but it will always hit Frieza if Frieza is actually blocking and standing. And you'll probably have to experiment a little bit in order to get the assist to make contact as close to when the 6M makes contact as possible, because you want your universal overhead, the 6M, to have a very small gap between that and the move connecting. Because if there's a really wide gap, like let's say a whole second, the opponent might switch to blocking low at that point, or you might just do it so late that it doesn't even work. We want them to make contact at almost the exact same time. So since Bardock B is a relatively slow assist, we might call it sooner than the 6M even starts up. So I'm hitting Bardock assist and then 6M really fast, and that makes it time very, very close together. And of course, if the opponent happens to get hit, you are still going to get your combo. But this isn't a perfect mix-up because there's always going to be a gap when you go for your universal overhead, where you might get reflected or they might reversal. Also, if you don't time your assist very close to when the universal overhead makes contact, the other person might switch to crouch blocking in time before the assist makes contact, and they will actually switch from a standing position to a crouching position, and now it doesn't work anymore. Since this recording is much tighter, it's much less likely that I would have switched to a crouching position fast enough before the assist makes contact. So is this something that is game-changing? No. Is it super practical for a lot of characters besides Gogeta? I don't think so. I think there's probably still better mix-ups you can do. Is it worth incorporating into your gameplay once in a while? Probably. if you have the option available to you with the characters that you already play. I wouldn't build a team specifically around this just with this in mind. I would still play the characters that you want to play and that you're most motivated to actually improve with, because that's what you're going to have the best result with and what you're going to enjoy. But if it works with the characters that you have, give it a try. You're probably going to have some fun with it. And also, I just wanted an excuse to really talk about how Blockstun and Fuzzies worked, even though most Fuzzies were removed from the game. Anyway, I hope you found the topic of this video pretty interesting. If you want to continue learning Dragon Ball FighterZ and other fighting games with me, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out. And head over to my Twitch to see when I go live. There's more on the way soon. Thanks for watching.